Today we are taking you on a journey through the pages of history. Are you ready to discover the rise and fall of great empires? Then welcome to the beginning of a breathless adventure. Roman Empire, 27 BC, 476 AD. The Roman Empire was one of the largest and most influential empires of the ancient world. It stretched across the Mediterranean basin, Western Asia, and much of Europe. Roman culture, law, and engineering skills were influential throughout the world. The decline of the Roman Empire culminated in the end of the Western Roman Empire in 476. One of the decisive factors behind this event was the rejection of the throne by the Visigoth leader Odoacer, who overthrew the last emperor of Rome, Romulus Augustulus. Here is the background to this dramatic event. The Visigoth march on Rome. The Visigoths played an important role in the fall of Rome. The Visigoth leader Alaric sacked Rome in 410 AD and captured the city, an event that shocked the ancient world. However, this sack was only the beginning of Rome's turbulent period. The weakness of the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire was plagued by internal conflicts, military difficulties, and economic problems. Throne fights within the empire and frequent changes in leadership caused Rome to become vulnerable. The weaknesses during this period severely reduced the empire's ability to defend its borders. The role of Odoacer. By 476, the Visigoths continued to threaten Rome. However, Odoacer, the Visigoth leader at the time, decided to overthrow the government of Romulus Augustulus. Odoacer held a meeting with Romulus Augustulus in Ravenna, after which he declared the official end of the Western Roman Empire. The abdication of Romulus Augustulus. Odoacer deposed Romulus Augustulus, but did him no harm. Even in official documents in Rome, Odoacer continued to rule the Roman lands, offering his loyalty to the Eastern Roman Emperor Zeno. Romulus Augustulus retired to live out his life. This event symbolized the official collapse of the Western Roman Empire, which remained a formality. Conclusion. In 476, the fall of the Western Roman Empire was the product of a complex period of internal decay and external threats to Rome, compounded by the role of the Visigoth leader Odoacer. It marked the end of the ancient world and the beginning of the Middle Ages, and is remembered as a historical turning point. Byzantine Empire, 330 AD, 1453 AD. The Byzantine Empire, which emerged as the eastern half of the Roman Empire, continued to exist after the fall of Rome, with Constantinople, today Istanbul, as its capital. Byzantium ruled over a vast region that included the Middle East and Southern Europe, as well as the Balkans and Anatolia. The decline of the Byzantine Empire culminated in the conquest of Constantinople by the Ottoman Turks in 1453. Here is the background to this event and the process of the fall of Byzantium, the Ottoman threat. Throughout the Middle Ages, the Byzantine Empire tried to resist various threats. However, by the end of the 14th century, with the rise to power of the Ottoman Turks, the borders of the empire were under serious threat. Starting from Anatolia, the Ottomans had conquered much of the Balkans and Anatolia, creating a belt surrounding Byzantium. Internal conflicts and weakness. The Byzantine Empire was shaken by internal strife and throne fights. Frequent changes of leadership and palace intrigues destabilized the governance of the empire. Economic problems and frequent changes in government structures weakened the empire's power and made it vulnerable to the Ottoman Turks. Siege of Constantinople. In 1453, the Turkish army, led by the Ottoman Sultan Mehmed Zakun, decided to capture the capital of the Byzantine Empire by besieging Constantinople. The siege resulted in the Ottomans using their massive cannons to breach the walls and subsequently capture the city. The last stand. The Byzantines, led by Byzantine Emperor Constantine Ephelth, put up great resistance, but Ottoman forces eventually succeeded in capturing the city. On May 29, 1453, the last Byzantine Emperor Constantine died during the fall of the city. The official fall of the empire. By conquering Constantinople, the Ottoman Turks declared the official end of the Byzantine Empire. This event symbolized the end of the Middle Ages and the beginning of the New Age. Conclusion. The fall of the Byzantine Empire and the rise of the Ottoman Turks were brought about by a combination of internal weaknesses and external threats. This event was a historical turning point, marking the end of the Middle Ages and the peak of the Ottoman Empire. The fall of Byzantium is remembered as a historical tragedy. Ottoman Empire, 1299 to 1922. The Ottoman Empire was founded by the Ottoman Turks in Anatolia and over time covered much of the Middle East, North Africa, and Southeast Europe. The Ottoman Empire made a huge impact at a time when Islamic civilization reached its peak and many different cultures came together. The collapse of the Ottoman Empire was the result of a chain of events in the 19th and 20th centuries. It reflected the Ottoman Empire's decline from its former power and its inability to keep up with the modern world. Here is the collapse of the Ottoman Empire, external threats, and lost lands. The Ottoman Empire began to lose vast territories from the 17th century onwards. The failure of the Siege of Vienna, 1683, and the wars that followed significantly limited the empire's territory in Europe. During this period, the Ottoman Empire was struggling against powerful rivals such as Russia and the European states, economic distress, and financial collapse. By the 19th century, the Ottoman Empire faced economic difficulties. The inability to keep up with modern industrialization movements and the loss of the old traditional economic structure and trade routes accelerated the financial collapse of the empire. Borrowings with foreign states and economic dependence weakened the Ottoman Empire's economic autonomy. Military weakness and modernization efforts. The Ottoman army became increasingly weak, unable to keep pace with technological advances. Falling behind in the face of modern weapons and strategies, the Ottoman army began to suffer defeats from the mid-19th century onwards. The military reforms initiated by Mahmud II and the modernization efforts launched with the Tanzimat Edict were not enough to stop the collapse. Balkan Wars and World War I. During the Balkan Wars, 1912 to 1913, the Ottoman Empire engaged in conflicts with the Balkan states and suffered major territorial losses. Then, with the entry into World War I, 1914 to 1918, the Ottoman Empire joined the war with the Entente states. At the end of the war, the Armistice of Mondros, 1918, was signed. The occupation of the Ottoman Empire began. The War of Independence and the founding of the Republic. The Turkish War of Independence, led by Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, symbolized the efforts to stop the collapse of the Ottoman Empire. The war ended with the victory of the Turkish army in 1922 and resulted in the establishment of the Turkish Republic in 1923. In 1924, the end of the Ottoman Empire was officially declared with the abolition of the Ottoman dynasty. Conclusion. The collapse of the Ottoman Empire was the result of the interaction of a number of internal and external factors. This process involved the empire losing its former power, failing to adapt to the changing dynamics of the modern world, and eventually losing many territories. Mongol Empire, 1206 to 1368. Founded by Genghis Khan, the Mongol Empire was one of the largest land empires in history. It conquered China, Central Asia, the Middle East, and much of Eastern Europe. The empire continued under Kublai Khan, establishing the Yuan dynasty in China. The collapse of the Mongol Empire is a historical turning point. It represents a significant event in the complex history of Central Asia. It was characterized by internal conflicts, external threats, and weaknesses in governance. Here is an account of the collapse of the Mongol Empire, the expansion and peak of empire. In the early 13th century, the Mongols, led by Genghis Khan, emerged from Central Asia and began to build a great empire. Genghis Khan's military strategy and unifying leadership rapidly expanded the empire, reaching its peak in the mid-13th century. The Mongol Empire stretched from China to Central Europe. Internal conflicts. After the death of Genghis Khan, 1227, the Mongol Empire was characterized by internal conflicts between the descendants of Genghis Khan. These internal conflicts weakened the unifying power of the empire. The rivalry between the dynasties descended from Genghis Khan jeopardized the integrity of the empire. The Great Khanate and the Golden Horde. The Mongol Empire was divided among the descendants of Genghis Khan. The Great Khanate dominated a vast area from Eastern Europe to East Asia. The Golden Horde ruled the steppes of Western Asia. However, this division weakened Mongol rule and set the stage for internal conflicts. Conquest of Karakorum. In 1260, Karakorum, the capital of the Mongol Empire, was captured by a Mongol army from Southeast Asia. This broke communication between the many regions of the Mongol Empire and made governance more difficult. This event further emphasized the internal weaknesses of the empire, the Yuan dynasty, and the end times in China. The Mongols established the Yuan dynasty in China and ruled the region. Over time, however, the Yuan dynasty also faced internal unrest and external threats. In the mid-14th century, the collapse of the Yuan dynasty in China symbolized the end of the Mongol Empire. Conclusion and lasting effects. The collapse of the Mongol Empire was the result of a series of internal conflicts and external threats. It was an important turning point in the history of Central Asia and had long-term effects on the states that were established in the region afterwards. The collapse of the Mongol Empire represented an important closure on the stage of history, while at the same time leaving deep traces throughout regional history. Conclusions. The most important lesson we can draw from these stories is the necessity of adapting to change. History is not only a record of the past, but also a guide to the future. Remember that every collapse is a harbinger of a new beginning.